Digivation Network.
What does it mean to you, and why is it important for it to be celebrated?
I think it's a day where we remember the fact that there's still a lot of inequality. I think it's a day where we celebrate the fact that there have been a lot of amazing women who have smashed the glass ceilings and who have challenged the status quo and who have taken a seat at the table and who have added tremendous value to their companies, their countries, and to the whole world.
Great. Thank you very much for that. My next question is this. How further can STEM education for girls take the Nigeria ICT sector and ensure equal opportunities?
I think that we have to understand that in the future, all jobs will be STEM-based, specifically technology-based, right? Which means that it is not only important to educate the girl child, it is important to educate every child in STEM education, right, at this point, right? And I think that digital skills are one area where we're still lagging behind, where there's a lot of work that needs to be done, where our sort of mainstream and curriculum that's available in public schools simply has not been adapted properly to the realities of today, which means that we are increasing the digital divide that already exists between us and the rest of the world. And we continue to do so by not giving it the importance and, sort of the priority that it really requires. So, in as much as I want women and girls to have the chance to have a place in this digital economy and play a really significant role, I don't think that we've even given boys the chance, right? So I think we need to give everybody the chance. And I think that we really need to be very critical of where we are and very honest with ourselves about where we are as well, because the truth is that we are lagging behind. And in as much as we have very exciting technology startups that have come out of Nigeria, and Nigeria is sort of the big buzz on the continent when it comes to the tech ecosystem, angel investment, we've just got our second unicorn. So I mean, these are exciting things, right? But I think that it also shows that there is a need for sufficient human capital, right? And human capital includes both boys and girls. And in as much as, yes, girls are sidelined when it comes to STEM education, and I think that there needs to definitely be something that is done about it. But I think more important than even the creating that equality is to create curriculum that has quality, right? So that when you create the equality, the girls are not learning things that are irrelevant and completely outdated, but they're learning things that will allow them to actually create opportunities for themselves. And I think that we really need to work on that. And then we can sort of start looking at, okay, how do we now reduce the gap, right? But the quality, I think, is more important. And we really need to sort of think about it from a human capacity development angle in a very critical manner.
Okay, great. How do we think we can forge gender equality in every sector, industry, and space in the economy?
I think number one, it's to ensure that there are sufficient number of qualified women that are ready to take up those roles, right? Okay. Which means that there has to be a very intentional path to mentoring young women to actually be ready for those big roles that are out there, right? And be ready for that seat at the table. I also think that apart from obviously the women being ready, I think there also has to be a lot of conversation that has to happen. A lot of the time, men don't notice when there's a room full of men. That's what they're used to. They've always been in a room full of men. It's not abnormal to them. When a woman steps into that room, and if she's recognized in the industry, then it's also not abnormal to them, because it's like, oh, that's Nkem, but Nkem has always been in tech and she's always been here, and yeah, she's one of us, right? And then that does not give room for those other women that should be in that room, right? And I think that it's to start having conversations about those biases and call those biases out, right? And I'll give an example. I was at the Nigerian Stock Exchange with some different people, mostly men, and we were standing and looking at a wall that had pictures of the past, I think, chairman or presidents of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, and they were all men. There was not one single woman on that wall. And I was baffled. I was shocked. I was baffled. I was just like, I don't understand. This stock exchange has been here for so long, and there's never been a woman in this position. This makes no sense, right? So I voiced it out, and I was just like, wow. I was just actually speaking to myself. I was like, wow, there's not one woman on this wall. And do you know how shocked the men were? They did not see it. They did not notice it. To them, what they were seeing was accomplished men. Right? And there was nothing wrong with it. And when I called it out and said it, they were like, wow, we didn't even see that, right? So they realized in that moment that they had bias. So when we have these kind of conversations with men that are in leadership, and we start telling them that they need to pay attention to it, right? And that they need to champion it and they need to call it out, right? Then I think we're going to see change, right? Women also need to do the same. We need to start the conversations. We need to call it out when there is an industry panel and there are only men on that panel, right? There are more than enough qualified women in every single industry to have at least one woman on a panel, right? To talk in a very eloquent way, and to have the knowledge to actually be on that panel, right? So for me, it's more about conversations, about painting pictures, about telling stories, and about raising awareness of the fact that a room full of men, a committee that only has men, a board that only has men is simply not normal anymore, right? And that we need to see change. And I think as women, we need to have a Rolodex of women that are ready for board positions, to sit on committees, to serve, to whatever it is that they need to do, right? Whether it's public service in a private sector organization, they're looking for a CEO, you must have your Rolodex of women ready, right? That you can recommend. So that when you are in that conversation, you can say, well, but I can recommend this person, this person, this person, and this person, and they will all be female. Simply because you are using the fact that you have access to these women to ensure that they get a chance, right? And that they get seen. Because the truth is, the men are going to get enough recommendations from all the other men, right? So as a woman, if you are in that position of power and leadership, you have to make sure that you're intentional about opening doors, about making recommendations, about being a role model, about being a mentor, right? And about having these honest conversations that are really hard to have, but that they're very needed to have as well.
Yeah, great. Actually, I do agree with that point that you raised there, that we need to put it in our consciousness. Both men and women need to do that, and it's not only for you to get into the room and be on that table. You also need to create path for other women to be able to be on that table, because your journey will definitely be different from another person's journey. Yeah, great. So on the last note, very interesting conversation. On the last note, what message do you have for young aspiring women?
I think my message is very simple. Be confident, be bold. Don't wait to be handed a position, a job, any type of leadership role, right? You must go for it, right? So don't ask for permission to get something, right? Do what the boys do, just go take it, right? They're not waiting for anyone to say, oh, am I allowed to have a board seat, right? They're not asking their wives, oh, sweetie, can I sit on this another board? That means I'm not going to be home even more. They're not asking for permission, right? So the question is, why shouldn't you? Why should you ask for permission, right? Why do you believe that you must ask for permission to be in a position of power, when you're equipped for that position of power. It's really, really important, I think, for women to understand their value and the contributions that they have to make to socioeconomic development and the building this nation, right? You cannot build a nation when one half of the population is not involved in nation building.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's really, really important for young girls and women at any stage of their lives to understand that you just need to want to. And a lot of the time, you are the main obstacle that actually stands between yourself and the success that you want, simply because you're too afraid to just go for it, right? So my advice is always do the thing that scares you the most, right? And do it afraid. Put your game face on. Nobody needs to see that you're afraid, right? I also think having a very strong network is very important. A network of both men and women that can support you and that can ensure that you have access to these opportunities. And I think the last thing is to really also to build your personal brand and to ensure that you own the narrative about who you are, what you stand for, the mission and vision of your life, right? I think it's really, really important that we take ownership of that and we don't let other people sort of dictate who we're seen as, right? We need to be very intentional about communicating the things that are important to us, the things that we want to work on, right? If you want to work on policy, start writing policy papers, policies, start approaching organizations where policies are being reviewed, start entering discussions that focus on policy, start making those connections with people who work in policy in order for you to have access, right? If you don't do that, then you are just not going to get that access. So I think it's really just very important to build your personal brand, build your network, and obviously have the knowledge and then be bold.
So basically, no goal set is too big.
No, not at all.
Thank you so much for your time. Conversation very short, but I tell you, I enjoyed it and it's quite insightful and filled with knowledge. Thank you so much once again.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
This is Digivation Network.